Welcome, everyone. We are recording this session just in case you're hearing it for the first time. This is part of our Ask the CISO series, Walk in My Shoes. The objective of these sessions is basically to provide an insight into what the life of a typical cybersecurity professional looks like. When I started having conversations with students and some of the people who are looking career in cyber, it became very clear that it's not easily visible or it's not possible for people to understand what are different types of role available and what would make a kind of a fruitful and engaging career for different people depending on the skills or the preferences or kind of just you as a person. So that's where we started from. And I have got now two young members of my team who are with us today. So Enrique and Rega, and we will come to you and we'll just do the quick introduction. But in just to be clear, these are our personal views. This is not any organization initiative. This is more about us giving it back to the society and profession. And I'm thankful to you both for coming and joining me today. So maybe we will go with you, Enrique, first. So can you please just give a quick introduction and your role, please?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Enrique, and I'm a recent cybersecurity grad. So I've got some technical hands-on experience with penetration testing, malware analysis, and digital forensics, to list a few. And currently, I'm a security architect, and the experiences I'll talk about today will be based on pen testing from university. So a lot of you, in this call may be able to, have some resemblance or, be able to have the same confidence with me. So yeah, thank you, Joe.
Thank you. And Rega.
Yeah. Hey guys, so my name is Rega, and like Enrique, I joined as a grad last September. So it's been about 8, 9 months now already, which is pretty quick. But yeah, so in my previous rotation or team, I was in the governance, strategy, and culture team, and currently I'm in the identity access management team. But yeah, today I'll be talking about the first rotation in the governance and strategy team. So yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's dive into it. Some of the questions I have, and then we will play as we go along. I'm just going to kind of talk about it. So it's a very important question, right? How did you get into cybersecurity? So maybe Rega, we go with you first.
Yeah. So yeah, my undergraduate was actually not cyber related at all. So it was actually I actually studied business management, and I think it was in my final year. Like there was more module focused on like just like technology or information technology or system in general. And I think there was like a module like accounting, information system, and etc. And then there was like very small chapter about cyber, and then it did make me think like they talk about how to leverage technology and all these, things happening in the world, but they were just a very small part of it. And I was like, oh, I want to know more about it. It sounds interesting. Like you could use these technology, but if everything goes down or something happens, then it won't even be useful. So yeah, from there I decided to do like a master degree. Basically, after my business degree, I decided to do a master in like security in general. So that looked at security quite holistically. So cyber was part of it, but it also looked at, say, physical security, even looked at like psychological element or scientific element. So it was like a degree where you had like a holistic overview of it. And then whilst I was doing my master's, I also worked in the IT department at the university as well, which was quite useful. Like even today, learning about just like a basic IT infrastructure, management part, and then so and then yeah, I applied for Deloitte during those times. So that's how I got into cyber.
That's interesting. I'm smiling because you started from non-technology and something and picked up an interest and
Yeah,
then pursued those interests. And I think we have got so many people in our teams. Somebody who was a primary school teacher now working in security. We have somebody who's a sound engineer now
yeah,
working. So that tells you you do not need to do a cyber degree or technology degree, but you can still find pathways into it. And that's what we're trying to encourage people. So Enrique, maybe to you. So tell us about your journey coming into cybersecurity.
Yeah, sure. So mine's actually very interesting. As a kid, I always was around technology, and I would like to, I used to take apart old computer machines, taking apart CPUs, motherboards, hard drives. So I was very hands-on with, working with hardware. And my first experience was actually wanting to essentially obtain a video game and I needed to have a key for that. And I did not want to have my parents to purchase this because of £20. And as a kid, that's quite a lot of money. So I went out of my way to download a key generator, which I thought would have solved my problem. But even though I had Kaspersky in the background, which is an antivirus client, it was telling me that the file was malicious and that it could have severe actions. But I was so persistent to install this piece of malware to obtain a key, which of course didn't work. And then from there, I started playing in virtual machines with different malware samples, and I started to learn about the different tactics, techniques, and procedures. So a lot of you on the call may be fond of the ransomware WannaCry, and I wanted to understand what these types of software could do. And the fact that this software could essentially encrypt all your files and demand ransom to unlock them, it just sparked my curiosity, and that's kind of where I started my journey in technical stuff, just trying to gauge curiosity.
So for the next question, maybe Enrique will stay with you. And there is a very big myth that exists, or maybe myth or not, that you need to have very strong technical skills to get into cybersecurity. And this is a very common question I get asked whenever I speak to events and I meet some of the younger generation. What's your view? Means how do you need to be super technical to get into cyber?
Okay, so while I've had this kind of experience working with some technical stuff, I would have to say no. A lot of the work we do on a day-to-day basis involves a lot of stakeholder engagement. And I think soft skills is something that you need wherever you go, and it's not role dependent. Technical skills come and go, but I think if you have a curiosity and you want to learn about a certain type of strategy or technology, that will come with your curiosity. So I think developing your soft skills so you're able to communicate with different stakeholders will get you around the business. So I wouldn't specifically look to delve deep into technical because it will come with time.
Yeah, and but at the same time, there are a lot of roles. That's a great point. Which is, I think most of the roles in cyber do not really need heavy technical skills to begin with. But I guess there are some roles where you need to have technical skills because that's really require you to perform a very specific focus. So whenever I think about those like penetration testing, red teaming, or reverse malware engineering, these are the things that comes to your mind in terms of. So what's your view about if somebody, because obviously you started learning about this on your own. So how can somebody go about learning these skills if they're really interested in going into that specific field?
Okay, yeah, sure. So it just depends on where you really want to go. So for penetration testing, there's a lot of resources online, from Microsoft or from YouTube that you can easily access. If you want to start getting into technical stuff, I would recommend start to look at different operating systems and try to be adaptable. If you can learn how to use the command line, you'll be able to execute different types of commands and run different types of software, which will allow you to learn those different tactics, techniques, and procedures. So yeah, I'm more than happy to talk about what I did for penetration testing, if you'd like me to elaborate on that. But yeah,
I think
definitely.
we'll get into it because just give it a thought in terms of what guidance you can give to the people who are interested in becoming a pen tester. Where can they go? What resources they can find, and how they get started. But maybe Rega, while you're thinking about that, we'll come to you. So, same question to you, right? Obviously, you come from a very different background and kind of then pursued the master's career. So, what's your view about the need for technical skills and to be able to get into cyber?
I think I think in general to get into it, I don't think, my personal point is that obviously I don't have like strong technical skill coming into it. And so I think to get into it, I don't think you need it. But I think even though it might not be too technical, I think you want to go into it willing or wanting to learn like the operational side as well. That doesn't mean that it has to be super technical part, but I think, you have to go into the mindset of wanting to learn the other part of cyber or the operational sides because it can really broaden the understanding. And even being on the governance team, you hear, people's experience, like my colleagues' experience, and then they have, experience in like a different part of cyber, say some operational or consulting, all these different area before reaching that governance role and stuff. So I think coming back to the question, no, I don't think you need it to specifically get into it, but I think it'll be a, a good trait, I guess, to want to learn the other part or the operational side as well. And as Enrique highlighted well as well, the business skills or the life skills, those, like say, communication or stakeholder engagement part, that's like a really, really big part of cyber, something I might not have originally thought of when I thought about cyber. So yeah, I think those kind of skills really go a long way. So yeah, I
So I
think
think that's
even
the theme coming out here, which is, curiosity, your analytical capability,
yeah,
your problem solving skills. I call them business skills, like essential life skills, which you can sometimes people underestimate that so much of it you have learned
yeah,
just being a student, going through the life that you can bring to the work, which is very, very important. The other thing, which is on my mind is, obviously a lot of people may not know what the cybersecurity governance means. What's the role governance plays in executive governance? So can you explain a little bit more in terms of what that means and what's the significance of this in the cybersecurity organization?
yeah. I think it was like, I feel like in my firm and the role wise, it kind of the governance, I think my team was called governance, strategy and culture. And I feel like the governance and, the strategy kind of really played a key role together. So just kind of like combining those together, it's really about, well, making sure, it's about like making sure like we're kind of protecting the firm, like the people, the data license, for example, operate, or reputation without the finite amount of resources and etc. So I think it's making sure we're kind of making like the best decision possible, or where to spend the money or project or program. And I think when I was in the team, a lot of things, like the most important part of governance was like a lot of stakeholder engagement. You really have to kind of be aware of what's going on, not in like different teams, or different stakeholders. That could be, speaking to people from like the threat intelligence team or the red team or, the second line, and just really making sure that, like we can kind of bring out like the necessary, well, topic, or within the meetings and etc. But not only that, we have to kind of make sure we document that, like report that, and making sure to kind of like log those actions, making sure that these necessary practices that's being say spoke about in a meeting, and and all that is properly logged and then properly actioned, and etc. So yeah, as executive governance, it's like a kind of like you have to have like a big overview of what's going on, and yeah, I really track that necessary things are being put in place and the optimal decisions are then kind of made from it. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that was like the key.
I think of governance as my air traffic control system, which is looking at what's happening in operations and strategy and change and programs, where we are investing money, how we are managing cyber risk, and reporting it upwards. Very, very important to go to the executives and tell them that what exactly are we doing, where we are, where we are spending the money, and what benefits are coming as a result of that. So explaining the ROI
Yeah.
and giving a good view of how we are managing cyber risk. That's where it plays a very, very important role. So Enrique, now, so why do we need pen testers? Why do organizations need to do a pen test?
That is an excellent question, Jit. If you think about protecting your services and your firm, with the ever evolving world of cyber, you're always going to have to be chasing security because new and emerging threats are always, you can't track them. And of course, there's a need for penetration testing, which essentially means you're sort of doing a ethical hack, which will allow you to test different sorts of ports or services which may be exploitable. And if you apply the attack MITRE framework, which is a whole load of different tactics, techniques, and procedures, such as privilege escalation, these keywords are very vital because if you're able to exploit a service, you might be able to gain valuable assets and then, of course, then cause reputational damage to the firm. So, of course, there's so many different areas that you can delve in with penetration testing. But to go back to your previous question, what kind of things you want to know, definitely learn about vulnerabilities because these are the areas which are highlighted on different risk severity ratings. And if you don't patch or remediate these vulnerabilities, they can lead to detrimental damage. And also, if you're looking at different types of attacks, you can look at OWASP top 10. I definitely recommend looking into those because there are different techniques such as cross-site scripting or SQL injection, and all of these are different types of attacks, which, of course, can have consequences if exploited successfully.
Perfect. Okay. So whenever I think about the pen test, the best way to explain for me is, you put up an alarm in the alarm in the house, but how do you know that alarm is working? And it is actually going to trip off when it needs to be. And similarly, you have to test your defenses before an attacker is going to come and test the defenses. So there's a very important element of testing your controls to make sure that they are working effectively in the way you expect them to work and finding the issues and before someone else finds it and you go and fix it. So it's an iterative process. So thank you. Now let's just talk about, these specific skills and also technical skills and the qualities that are desired if you want to be in the role. So example, we come to you, we will stay with you, Enrique. So if somebody wants to be a pen tester, right? What would you advise the person who is on the call or who's going to listen to the recording, that the person is interested in becoming a pen tester? So what skills are required, what qualities are required, and how do they go about it?
Yeah, of course. So I think I mentioned quite a lot of this in the previous question, but it's definitely a curiosity for one to learn, because there's so many different types of threats or ways which you can conduct a penetration test. So as an example from my university work, I had my own Kali Linux machine, which is a open source version of Linux with different types of tools. And I had another virtual machine which was vulnerable on the same subnet, or essentially two machines on the same network. Now with these, first I conducted a vulnerability scan, which allows me to see what services might be exploitable. And from there, I used another framework called Metasploitable, which allowed me to run these different exploits. And from there, it's just about testing different exploits and how you can retrieve information from a different machine. So definitely going back to curiosity to learn, I think if you can use a Linux machine as an operating system, be able to go through command line and terminals, learn the different types of tools, because penetration testing is not its own function. There's also other tools like Ghidra, which is used for reverse engineering malware. All of these different tools are all linked together in its own way. But I think, it just goes back to wanting to learn, have a look at different guides, tutorials, and see what resources you can use. Yeah, definitely look at the Kali Linux machine, and you'll find a whole
Yeah.
load of information from there.
I call the people, right? Google is your kind of a best friend in that way. Not that I'm just promoting Google, but I think it's when I was growing up, I remember there was no search engine. There used to be a black and white Alta Vista search engine, which was a command line thing. Finding information was very difficult. But today we have got so much of resources available. And if you want to become a pen tester and want to get in the journey, I think there are so many resources available where you can actually just play around and do a lot of testing yourself. So thanks. Rega, now coming back to if somebody wants to strategy and governance team, what you think are the skills and the qualities needed for someone to be pursuing a career in that direction?
Yeah, I think in this, especially governance strategy, you really have to have like a quite good overview of what's going on. First of all, you have to interact a lot with stakeholders. So just the essential normal communication, engagement, those kind of things are very important. But I think another thing I found within my, role there was that you really need to be able to have like a really good holistic way of thinking. So having the ability to kind of step back and see from like a multiple point of view, because when you come to priorities, you have to think of all these different domains and risk that comes into it. So I think being able to step back and not be so ingrained in like each kind of point was like a quite important or crucial part, I thought, that I've learned over there. But also you have to be very attentive all the time. You have to be on track of things to really understand like what's going on, what's the process, what's the progress on certain thing that was mentioned. But I think another thing I really learned in the team was you have to be really concise in like the way you report or when you need to go to the point. I thought I was being concise enough at uni, or I thought I learned that enough, but no, when I came into this team, I realized no, I have to be even more concise than that. Really have to get directly to the point and to make sure, because these people, they're busy people, so they don't have time to read all the reports or get all the information. So you really need to give them that necessary information on time in the limited time they have. So I really learned to be like concise and to the point. So yeah, I think that's like another effective communication skills I've learned in the team.
Mastering the skill of writing a concise executive summary to get the point across.
Yeah.
Like it. Okay. Now, obviously, yeah, go on, Enrique.
Yeah, just if you don't mind me interrupting.
Sure.
Two extra things I just remembered based on, if you want to get into pen testing. There's the technical skills, but there's also more on the soft skills. So, you could be the greatest pen tester in the world and, be able to exploit all these vulnerabilities. But if you can't write a report and document them to different types of stakeholders, that's where troubles will occur. So you need to be able to explain technical things to non-technical people and so on, so on and so forth. And this is where it's outlined in the executive summary. But also, just if you want to have some fun and just kind of delve into the different types of tactics, techniques, and procedures, I definitely recommend Hack the Box and Try Hack Me, because those are two very useful sources which help me get into things like experimenting with different sandboxes, which essentially is an environment which you can have some fun and it won't affect the host. So yeah, please do look into those as well.
Enrique, you made a very good point, actually. When I was kind of junior in my career, and I used to organize pen test, and I will generally do the scoping call with the pen testers and we'll then get the report and we will analyze the report. And there will be some pen testers, their report will stand out, really stand out, because report within first 2 pages will actually tell you these are the things that you really need to focus on. And with not just that, but also giving some guidance on where you can find more information on remediating that vulnerability and everything else. So whereas some reports were pretty much like a dump of whatever they found, with the details, it's almost like I had to review and figure it out myself, which one needs to be prioritized. And as I have become, obviously a CISO in my job, there's so much to do all the time. So prioritization is very, very important. So what needs to be handled and tackled first? So great point. I think good report writing skills, making the message clear, being concise and precise is actually brilliant and goes a long way. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Now, obviously, when you were both joining, few months ago into cybersecurity, it'll be interesting to know what's your perspective when you were going to join and how that perspective has changed now working in one of the large organization in a cybersecurity function. So maybe Enrique, we'll go with you this.
Yeah, sure. So, a lot of my degree was focused on technical skills and running a lot of different lab exercises.
Yeah.
So I had all this technical knowledge within these different areas, but joining a firm that's heavily focused on cyber, you start to realize there's so much more than just technical stuff, and it's how you convey that information to different stakeholders. So you also notice that a lot of people come from different backgrounds, as Jit mentioned in the beginning. So it's always a knowledge exchange. You're always learning every day, and again, like I said, not every day is the same day. So those are the biggest things I definitely like to outline. So I think one of the biggest areas, you shouldn't have to put a lot of stress on yourself if you're not really in that technical space, because if you have a passion and the curiosity to want to learn, you will definitely find, what kind of career path you want to go down. But definitely for cyber, I think just being in that space and, always having a look at keeping up to date with the news in terms of cyber affairs, that will definitely get you, far and spark your interest as well.
Thank you. Rega, what about you?
Yeah. So yeah, like as someone who's not really from a technical background as well, I'm not gonna lie, before I came into, the team and everything, I was thinking like, oh no, it's a bit scary. Like, it's not like I might not understand everything they're doing and all that. And I think even at first, I remember being in a meeting and they were talking about very complicated stuff, right? Or technical stuff. And then I used to think, if they asked me a question, I was thinking maybe I should kind of pretend that I know what they're talking about and all that, because I was quite scared to think, oh, maybe this is a workplace, like I should already know stuff. But then I think the big realization is that obviously like we have like a really amazing community and culture and everyone's really helpful and stuff. But then at the same time, like it makes you realize, yeah, we're here to learn. It's okay to not understand stuff. It's okay to ask questions. Like there's nothing wrong with it. Like, and they're not gonna expect you to know everything. Like, as in like it's such a big industry and there's so much to learn. And I think I
I'm a
hear loads of
CISO.
people
I don't know
say,
everything. So I asked you guys
yeah.
so many times and I don't know anything. So absolutely.
Yeah, that's like that kind of relieved me when I first arrived here, because I kind of say to people, I was to my team now, I'm a bit worried that I don't really know everything, and they're literally like, I've been in the industry for, some people say, like, for so many years, and I still don't know anything. And it's just like, the more you learn, or more you dive into cyber industry, actually people say the more you realize how much you don't know yet, and stuff like that. So I think I think that kind of my perspective changed in that sense, that look, I'm just like, I'm ready to learn, or I'm here to learn, I like, even I'm here to work as well, I'm also here to learn at the same time, and that's completely like an okay thing, and that should be like the normal thing. You don't have to feel like you need to know everything and understand everything.
And be open and honest and ask questions, because that's the best thing. That's the best way you're gonna learn. And learning never ends actually. Now generative AI has, new technology has come in, which is bringing different type of risks, which when I have been building my career, I have not been thinking about. So even I'm learning about it. I am trying to get my head around some of these things. So it's all, you have to constantly learn. That's the beauty of kind of field we work in. So, one thing I'll ask, and then this one, it's, there are a lot of people who are trying to get into cyber on this call, or they will listen to the recording. You were in the same position, right? If you think about putting yourself in the shoe when if you were there and trying to get into cybersecurity, what would have been useful for you to know before you coming in, and what advice you would give to the people who are listening? And maybe Rega, we go with you.
I think, so I think in terms of advice, for people getting into looking to get into cybersecurity, I think one mistake, or I used to think, is like, even like, say you speak to people who know about cyber, or interview, when you engage with other people, I used to think it's about how much you know. It's like, I have to do this certification, I need to do that, or I need to learn about these things, which it is an important thing. But then, like, I think the number one thing I felt like is actually important is, why do I want to do cyber? I think it's like, the more I thought about, okay, why do I actually want to do cyber? And then the more I thought about it, it excited me, like, it's like you kind of understand like your passion for it. And I think, like, the more you think about, okay, why do I really want to get into this industry? Why do I want to do cyber? And you really start understanding your passion side of it and the why, it starts reflecting a lot. That could be when you're speaking to your friend or someone, the cyber colleague, or even in an interview. I think that really reflects a lot. And I think that is like the value that is probably a lot more important than what you already know, or the certification you have. Like, I'm not saying that it's not important to have certs and stuff. It is, in a sense, it is an important aspect. But I think really thinking about why is, I think, the most important part. Yeah. So I think that probably is the advice I would give to someone who's looking into getting into cybersecurity. Yeah. And you don't have to know the answer, but I think it really does. It's really good to think about the passion aspect of it.
Cool. Enrique, what about you?
Yeah, definitely. I think Rega covered quite a lot, where you're talking from experiences of not knowing which area you want to delve into. Fortunately for myself, going into a cybersecurity degree, I got quite a lot of exposure to different types of areas. From past experiences of messing around with malware and virtual machines as a kid, led me, on this journey. But I think definitely have a look at the different types of, cybersecurity things. Well, techniques and tactics that are out there. If you want to do red teaming exercises like pen testing or malware analysis, or if you want to go into blue teaming, there's so many different possibilities. But I definitely would suggest looking into certifications as well, because if you have some sort of love or passion for wanting to get into cloud, then yeah, you could definitely get into doing the Azure fundamentals. I think it's the AZA 900. And that's a very good course, which gives you a good overview of what cloud is, what the different types of services they offer. And yeah, it just depends how technical you are, because then you'll know which kind of path you want to go down. But definitely.
And Ricky, I'm assuming these are free courses that you mentioned around the Azure, the fundamentals. They're free courses available.
So to get the actual course, the materials are available online. But if you want to get the certification, I think the cost is £70. But with a lot of these certifications, I don't see them as a cost, but rather an investment, because if you're let's just say you're going up against another candidate in a interview, and you both have good, excellent university degrees, what actually differentiates you from the competition? What experiences can you talk about? So like Jit said, about going on and doing extra initiatives, it's about how you show your curiosity and your passion of wanting to learn. And one day, for example, I might be doing security architecture, but then who knows if I end up in DevOps as an example. There's so many endless possibilities. So definitely find your passion
Thanks.
and do some, some reading and some research into these certifications.
So we're gonna have last two questions before we finish. So maybe one thing for you is, obviously you have joined cyber, you have now working in different fields of your interest areas and everything else. So what's the next step looks like for you in a short to medium term?
Yeah, definitely. So while being fortunate to have a rotational program where I've done some pen test coordination and now I'm doing some security architecture, I definitely want to learn different areas of information and cybersecurity where available. But I've definitely started looking at the ASA 900, and then I'm going to go over to the other competitors like AWS and GCP, Amazon and Google Cloud Platform. So once I've kind of looked at that, I'm definitely looking into cloud architecture because that's an area that just interests me quite a lot, and there's endless opportunities, and it's also a grey area because there's a how do you actually go, the governance around cloud, and especially because I did some forensics, how do you do cloud forensics? There's loads of different
It's
opportunities.
very different. Yeah, absolutely. You can't touch those assets. They're not running any data center anymore. So absolutely. Rega, again, for you, what's the next step? What the short to medium term goals looks like for you? Where do you want to go?
I guess, yeah, I think I want to obviously make most of like, what the company resources, what offers like Enrique say, but I think we're in a fortunate situation to be able to do like the grad rotation. So like, as we know, cyber is such a broad industry, and like I want to be kind of open-minded to and try and learn as much as possible, experience as much as possible. But yeah, I think um so I think my number one thing is just focus on learning as much as possible, and make most of the resources. And then maybe even speak to, a lot of people in my team and stuff. I met like so many cool people in my team, and I hear their story and I just think, oh wow, like they have so many different experiences, so many skills. And I think to reach where they are, and I feel like, that's something I do want to experience. I want to try and experience different parts of cyber before having that more specialization. But yeah, that's
Thanks. So we're gonna wrap up with a few questions. So if anybody has any questions that you would like to ask, please use the Q&A functionality, or you can put in the chat and we'll pick it up. So Enrique, what's the long-term goal?
Long-term goal. Well, like I said, cloud architecture is something that I kind of want to get into. But long-term goal, I definitely want to be leading a cyber team, whether that's in the firm or even maybe starting my own cyber firm. There's so many different opportunities. And right now, even though I did the cybersecurity degree, I feel like there's still so much more to learn. And, like I said, opportunities are endless. So, yeah, hopefully leading a team sometime, in the next 10 years or so.
Good. I didn't think about that when I was your age. So, and if you dream, if you work hard, if you stay curious, keep learning, I think that happens as a byproduct. But just the main thing is to keep going for it. Absolutely. So, Rega, long-term plan, long-term
I
goal.
think I want to focus on learning more about the operational side, before, because that is the part I may lack a bit more. So I want to make sure I learn a lot of that. And I think in long term wise, I want to probably do something within the strategy, which is like the intersection of cyber and business. You look at prioritization, but you really need to be aware of all these different parts of cyber, which is always changing. So I think it will always keep me like on my feet, which I kind of enjoy the thrill of it. So I know it's a lot of responsibility, but I think that is kind of like a career path I am, thinking that it will be great if I can kind of go into that route.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, you know what I call cyber is not a job, it's a mission.
Yeah.
A very purposeful mission. And when you look at new threats which are emerging and everything else, they are becoming, this job is becoming even more purposeful, because you're not just protecting the organization, you're protecting people, you're protecting clients, the society in general. So it's a very, very purposeful job. So, okay. We have someone from Shivani. I had a doubt regarding the pen test report. What are the factors that you consider when writing the report, especially the executive summary? Enrique, go for it.
Yeah, sure. So of course you're going to, if you're conducting a penetration test, you're going to have loads of different areas, different risk and severity ratings on the vulnerabilities you find. The biggest thing when writing an executive summary is you want it to be short and concise. You've got to consider that you're going to be talking to a lot of different stakeholders who may be technical or non-technical. And it just depends on how big the report is. So, it could be a brief paragraph, which is about 300 words. which just outlines the key factors. You could even present this in graphs as well. So rather than having loads of risks, you could have 3 critical vulnerabilities in red or 1 green for low. So it's just how you address these, how you address it to different stakeholders, who may not be technical. I hope that answers your question as well.
Yeah, and I think I will tell you my view. So example, because when I have been doing this quite, when I used to review these reports and everything else, so I always enjoyed the context because some pen testers have taken interest to understand the context of the application. Is this application internet facing? This application is business critical. It is processing the personal data or a healthcare data, whatever. And when you apply that, and when the executive summary you write that the task that was given was to pen test this application, which is internet facing and processing sensitive data. So even though the finding is medium, but basically it has got, as a result of the business context and the risk that the application poses, this needs to be remediated quickly or whatever. So I think it's about giving a, it's almost like you're talking to the person who is reviewing the pen test report to basically say, this is the business context in which this application was tested. This is what we found, and we believe these are the areas that needs to be prioritized for the remediation within the next 30 days or 60 days. So it's almost like you're giving a very clear response to the person so they can prioritize those actions, because end of the day, something needs to happen on the back of the pen test. And if you can provide that advice and guidance very clearly, I think that goes a long way. Okay. The next one is how do you prioritize task in pen testing, considering each task is critical? Additionally, how do you measure the success afterwards?
I'm sorry, Jake, could you just
It's
repeat
in
that
Q&A.
question?
It's in the Q&A button. If you can just.
Yeah, I don't think I see that one. It's not
Oh,
coming
you
through for
can't
me.
see it? Okay. Can you see chat?
Yes, but I don't think I see that
I'm
question.
going to put it on the chat for you. So.
Oh, okay. How do you prioritize tasks in penetration testing, considering that each task is critical? Yeah, okay. So it just depends on. So there's many different ways to conduct a penetration test. Essentially, first you could have something like AAT, which is automated application testing, and that can also disclose some open vulnerabilities with the platform. And then you have to see what assets are at risk, based on the severity rating. So if you have something which a service which may be out of date and it doesn't have the latest patches, you might find that that might have detrimental damage to your service. And if that's easily exploited, well, there goes your assets and your reputation. So you have to also consider that pen tests are very time-based. If you quote to do a test for 5 days and you don't find all those vulnerabilities in that time, again, how critical is each task? So again, very time dependent, but how do you measure success afterwards? Being able to, suggest remediations and how you can mitigate those risks. Because at the end of the day, you want to protect your service, and a pen test allows you to do an ethical hack or, kind of conduct the same types of actions a threat actor would kind of do as well. So yeah, I think again, it's just depending on how big the service is and how, what resources you have utilized.
I think that, and the other point is, good pen testers, they do another interesting thing. They actually, and because when they understand the business context, if they find something, they don't wait for the report. If they find some vulnerability that they believe is something really important, needs to be fixed, they pick up a phone and basically call the client and tell them, or call the person to say, this is something we have found, which needs to be fixed like immediately. So that's also key. There's another one, which is how do you bridge the gap between the development team and the pen test team in the organization?
That's quite interesting because, in my role, I was doing some penetration testing coordination, and a lot of my interactions were between the development team and the pen testers. So you have to keep it very high level again, because again, you might be explaining information from technical people to non-technical people. And there'll be a few tasks as well, like setting up prerequisites to ensure those environments are available so you conduct the pen test. But again, it goes back to the soft skills and how you communicate between different stakeholders.
Okay, the other one has come, which is what's the part you enjoy most about your role? team itself or the daily work or the process of keep exploring the cyber industry? Maybe Rega, come on, your chance.
Yeah, I think the team part, like I think we have such a great team. So I think always interacting with the team and working with
I
the
didn't
customers.
pay them. I didn't pay them.
It's
Honest review.
definitely, honestly, that is like the really fun part of it. I think talking about my time in the governance, strategy, and culture team, I think the most enjoyable part was, for example, in the strategy team, I had like, like sometimes I'll be tasked with researching about the current attacks globally or UK or trend, and really kind of looking into the current trend. And it was such a part where you really learn a lot every day. So like you'll be hearing stuff that I've never really heard of before, or so yeah. And then in terms of like culture team, which I didn't really mention too much, but it was like there was loads of creativity involved. Obviously, like we have to manage people at the end of the day in terms of cyber, and then you kind of come with your proposal presentation, and there was loads of creativity involved in the thing, which I didn't really think would be the case in cyber. So I feel that was like a very fun part that I really enjoyed, yeah, during my time.
I think for me, one thing I have always enjoyed working in cyber is it's never dull. As I said, it's not a job for me, it's a mission. It's something very meaningful work, and there's always more to do than what time you have. So it's exciting. So every day when I come and when I kind of wake up and do this, it's very meaningful, and it's always learning something that keeps me very excited. So Enrique, there's a question for you in the chat, which is a very interesting question. What happens if you break something critical to business function in prod during a pen test? What steps are taken to mitigate this risk? First of all, if there is a business critical payments application, don't test on prod. But again, I have some interesting stories about that, but for some other day. But maybe Enrique, you can talk about it.
Yeah, sure. So typically with doing these penetration tests, you will have two different environments. Now, you don't want to affect your production environment because, of course, that's where a lot of the work is done and most of your assets are based. In the event you are testing on a production environment and you do come across these types of risks and issues, a lot of companies also do have mitigation plans and disaster recovery plans just in case this does happen. But it's a very broad question because it just depends what assets you actually affect and what time it takes to restore functionality to those services.
Yeah. So, but my view is you can always put guardrails. Ideally, you should not be testing a business critical application in prod. I think that unless there is a very good reason something cannot happen, and when that happens, the good pen testers, they have a good understanding about which are the tools that are intrusive, which are non-intrusive. So they put some guardrails in the approach they have towards the testing. And it's not a real pen test. It's like they work hand in hand with the monitoring team to make sure they're doing it. Because I have seen cases where a pen test had to be done on a legacy application, but you had to still couldn't do it on dev because the dev environment didn't exist. So you had to put a lot of guardrails into place. But if it is a business critical application, essential, you should not be testing on prod. Or there are cases, for example, you can do out of office hours when there is no load on the server. If it is not a 24 by 7 service, then you can obviously do it in the time that it doesn't need to be done. How to balance the certification and daily work? Enrique, maybe Rega,
Yeah,
one of you.
yeah, I'm happy to bring up this question. So a lot of the way I manage my work actually came from university. So if you actually have good, effective time management and resource planning, you'll be able to balance your workload. But it's about having a good balance and being able to prioritize your tasks where needed. So if you've got, let's just say, in my case, the security review I've got to complete as a security architect, you've got to consider how long that's going to take. And then also plan for the unexpected as well and ensure you have enough time to also, allocate additional resources. So again, I think it just depends on how you work best because some people like myself like to work in sprints where, I like to get all my work done to ensure I've got more time to do additional tasks like certifications. But if you may be the type of person to work in block, then yeah, you might find that it's better to balance your time doing things in short tasks or maybe over a longer period.
Enrique,
Yeah, I
any
think
tips from
one
you?
thing, yeah, Enrique, you explained everything in a sense, but yeah, I think one thing to kind of highlight is that usually, like, organization, at least in our team, say when we had certain certifications or exam, not only we kind of tell our people leaders and etc., but when you're like transparent about the workload and the certification, usually it's a case that they'll kind of give you the time for the learning and etc. So I think people might sometimes think it's, you know, the daily work, then anything outside should be certification. But I think, well, at least in our team, not sure elsewhere, but you know, you can be provided the time to do own learning if you're quite transparent in what kind of certification you're pursuing and etc. So I think yeah, I think that's kind of the important point to mention.
Enrique, there's a question for you. I will let you read it, and I will say one more thing. You touched upon that Rega really well, because when I was a junior, when I was starting my career, I never thought it's okay to ask my leaders that I would like to do the certification and for asking for some time and reduce workload. Now I know I should have done that, because most leaders will be very happy to give a dedicated time in yours to make sure that you're able to grow further, because your growth basically also helps the organization and the team. Because if you become a better professional, you bring those skills to work as well. So do not be afraid of asking for the time. Do not be afraid of asking for a training need or a certification need you have. An example, in our team, we give a dedicated time for everybody to make sure that you can learn, you can do certifications if you would like to do. We have those conversations. So, but having the open conversation is very, very important. If you're not going to do that, that means you will not get the benefit that might be there, but you're just hesitant to ask for it. So, Enrique, question from Shivani.
Yeah, definitely. So the question is, what would your suggestion be preparing for an interview for a penetration testing role? I think I have a great example because, you know, of the things I did at university, and I was able to talk about it in my interview for a cybersecurity role. But if you don't have any technical experience, definitely do look at doing some research into the different types of tactics, techniques, and procedures, different methodologies like the attack MITRE framework, the NIST methodology. Um, Even look at doing those activities, like I said, on Try Hack Me, because there's a lot of different things you can talk about. And in interviews, you might be able to do loads of different tasks, but it's how you approach it, you know, the mindset. If you have a growth mindset of wanting to learn and try different things, you can apply that to different roles. So in terms of the pen testing, yeah, definitely look at doing Try Hack Me, because there's some good activities on there, which you can definitely talk about through experience in your interviews.
And once you do it, you always have a lot more to talk about at the interview process. So the next question is from Kirtana, which is, what is the most exciting project you have got to work on till date on rotation? So we will take that fourth question first and come to the second one. So what's the most exciting project we have worked on, Rega?
Oh, I think
Don't go
yeah,
into too specifics. Don't go into too specifics.
yeah. I won't but like well, there's quite a few. But I think I really enjoyed like the research aspect of it. So as in like a strategy and stuff, you have to be aware of like the current threat or current, you know, trend and vulnerabilities and all these different factors. Things that I think I really enjoyed really researching really different domains of like all the area, and then to kind of come into like, you know, maybe address like the key point I found from it. So I think
what needs to be prioritized, basically. Yeah, you need all
what
that
needs to be
research to be for the
research.
prioritization.
But it was such a like learning curve. Like, well, obviously with assistance stuff, it made me think in so many different angles that I initially wouldn't have thought of. So I thought that was like a really kind of amazing kind of experience for me. Yeah, it kind of opened my eyes.
Yeah. Enrique.
Yeah, what's the most exciting project? I would have to say there's some good stuff in penetration testing, but currently security architecture is something that I've not really touched upon. And the only reason I'm mentioning it is because, again, there's so many different roles in cybersecurity. So, you know, going into working with different types of architectures, looking at different diagrams, dissecting what sort of security controls are in place for different applications, and even what types of encryption standards are being used. I think just dissecting into high-level technical stuff is what keeps me on my toes, really, and wanting to learn more about new and emerging security controls.
Yeah, as I always say, right architecture makes the job of a pen tester a lot harder. So,
Definitely.
Next question is, what advice would you give to someone with a few years of industry experience to approach the job hunting process? I'll take this one first. I think my view is, whenever you are going for any interview process or anything else, first, a lot of people do not realize your CV is a marketing tool that is going to represent you when you are not in the room. So a lot of times I have seen similar templates being rotated and everything else, and there is no individuality in the CV. So having a good quality CV, highlighting your experience is very important. For example, if you're studying now, but if you have worked previously, don't talk about your university course and the degree at the top, because that's one important if you're doing masters today. But what skills you have carried, what you have learned on the job, what you can bring to the table, literally executive summary. It's the same thing. Just I always say first half of your pay of your CV actually is the golden real estate in that CV. So make the best, making it, making it making it work best for you to present you is very, very important. If you do not generate the curiosity there, most likely people are not going to pay attention to the rest of the CV. That's one. When people reach out on LinkedIn, right? Even that process itself is actually, if you think about it, that itself is a writing skill. How are you going to distinguish from somebody who's writing an email or outreach on a LinkedIn to generate the curiosity? Because people get a lot of emails, a lot of spams and from vendors and everybody else. And also, have you got the elevator pitch? If you get to meet a senior leader like myself at a conference, in the lift, or anywhere else, and you get those 2 or 3 minutes, have you got that nailed down so you can express yourself and explain that in a very clear terms? And that sets you apart from everybody else. So if everybody's doing the same course in the same university, what sets you apart? And you have to kind of focus on that. I don't know, maybe Rega or Enrique, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think you explained that perfectly. But just another thing going with job hunting, I think if you're looking for a specific role, definitely look at the requirements and what initiative you can do to learn more about what they're looking for. It could be soft skills or technical skills, but if you have to look at what the role requirements actually are, and if you can do that additional learning and show how you have followed through it with experience, then that will give you a greater chance
Yeah.
at a successful interview.
Cool. And I think maybe Rega, you want to add something before we close?
Maybe yeah, but just one thing to say, since I wasn't really from a cyber background initially as well, so even if the few years industry experience wasn't cyber related and you think, oh, I don't have that technical skill or anything, just focus on your strength. All these business or life skills is really, really essential in cyber. So just really focus on that strength of your strength, or because our people is really diverse. There's so many people from different backgrounds, so there's so many strengths that different people can bring. So yeah, I'd really, really focus on that.
Good. Okay, I hope it was useful. We have run a little bit over, but thank you everybody for joining and listening in. And we will publish this recording, and I really hope anybody who's listened to the recording afterwards, you will find this useful. Please do give us a feedback, because that's important, because that helps us to improve further when we do the next sessions. But thank you so much for tuning in, and Enrique, Rega, huge thank you to you for engaging and sharing your knowledge. And Harry, thank you so much for organizing. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jit, for giving us the opportunity as well.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.